Senzeni na Tina Senzeni na Tina Senzeni na
Thank you very much, Eusebius Wady, for this opportunity for us to reflect on these complicated, vexing questions. I like what you said about let's leave white people aside. It reminded me of what Toni Morrison says. Toni Morrison, she's interviewed about the books she writes and how she writes a book and how she doesn't actually foreground whiteness in her books. And she makes the point that, we tend to make white people a stick, constantly referencing them in our experience in relation to whiteness. And I think I absolutely agree with you that this is one of the challenges that we have to face. She says, in fact, that in comment of hers in relation to, is it Ralph Ellison's book, Invisible Man? And she says, invisible to whom? In that Toni Morrison side, invisible to whom? And it's true that, these are our bodies and we are constantly reflecting to our body in relation to white bodies. But I want to start where you started, with Sharpeville, and how South Africa, in fact, the repetition of Sharpeville in Marikana, how South Africa is haunted by the specters of the apartheid past, of apartheid crimes. Not only apartheid crimes, but crimes that date back to the colonial era. We are haunted by the specters, these kinds of repetition of the past in ways that sometimes we don't understand, we don't have the tools to understand how is it that Marikana is almost exactly the exact repetition of Sharpeville. And I started wondering about this relationship between several incidents that have happened in our country during apartheid, now in the present moment, and thinking about what does haunting mean? How does haunting play out in subsequent generations? If we accept that traumas that are not addressed, that are not confronted and worked through adequately, will return, setting aside the idea that this is a psychoanalytic thought, but this is a human kind of experience. What do we mean? How is haunting passed on to subsequent generations? And it seems to me that there's a lot of that history that we need to reflect on, that we have the history of slavery, not just in the US, in this country, the history of subjugation of black people as bodies, black people as domestic machines that clean up, that make right, that sort out, or the bodies of women who are enslaved as sexual objects to satisfy the white masters. And how even looking at just that particular history of women's roles in those days, in the colonial era and in the apartheid era, how that continues today. The definition of a woman's body as a body that has to be abused. I'm going to come back to this in a moment because I would like to focus on that. But first, I want to say something about the notion of racism and how racism is deeply entrenched in the unconscious minds of racists. And in conversations about racism, we often miss it, that it's so deeply entrenched. If you look at this history of where it starts with enslavement of black people as objects, as bodies that have to be used in any way, that has been passed on to subsequent generations of whites. The idea that a black person is constructed in the white person's unconscious as other, always. You ask the question, why is it that so many people, so much of what's going on in terms of racist public statements on media, social media, and so on, why is it that it's young people? Why is it that it's young, wise people? And some of these people will say, oh, I'm not racist, I wasn't brought up during apartheid, you know, I went to modest schools and so on. But what is going on, I think, is just this aspect of this relationship to racism that is missed, that racism is unconscious. It's passed on. It's passed on almost like it's enclosed, it's passed on in ways that we may never be able to decipher in any clear terms. But there's something that is passed on that haunts the cultural memory of whiteness, that as a black person, you are an other, which is to say, you can be dehumanized, you know, they can subjugate you in any way. This is a construction of blackness. You are other. You are, in every sense of the word, not like me. And therefore, you can be dehumanized, you cannot be recognized, you can be evacuated from the experience of day-to-day life. Now, that is in terms of racism. There is something more urgent for us today. And it is not necessarily the experience that racists impose on black bodies, but rather the contemporary experiences of the loss of self, the loss of dignity of black people, as if they are living under the same conditions that colonial, apartheid, black people lived under. And this is the question that we have to confront. Why is it? What is being produced here and reproduced? I drive from Fishhook to Stellenbosch every day, and the squatter communities are growing exponentially. And when you think about the lives of these people who live in this area, the sense of what their lives are going to be, it's the same questions that confronted their great-grandparents. What are our lives going to be as these people? And so I think in thinking about the impact of these kinds of experiences on black people, we have to move beyond the idea of, as we say, black body as a metaphor. Marikana, the story of Marikana is critical, is crucial. It reminds us that the black skin is the canvas, is important, is a crucial canvas for the exercise of racism, for the exercise of exclusion. However, if we rest it at that point and not go beyond their experience, we are stuck at this level of, oh, these are victims of Marikana, without actually understanding the depth of what brought us to this point. The depth is the day-to-day experience of the people whose bodies are obliterated into nothingness. Ta-Nehisi speaks about the US, and he says, the US experience of racism, and he says, it's tradition in America to destroy black bodies. Now, he's speaking in relation to whiteness, in relation to blackness. But if we remember the experiences of black people today in what we call post-apartheid South Africa, how can we argue or hold on to the argument that this has to do with racism? Of course, there is continuity in this. There's history produced and reproduced, but who is reproducing is the question that we have to confront ourselves here. So I think that for me, I mean, I don't think I know that for me, what is critical is for us to move beyond these notions that metamorphorize metaphor.
Yes.
Yes, that one.
That word. That makes black experience into metaphors. I think we've got to move beyond this and think about what is the day-to-day experience. And then when we do that, it's going to move us to the place where we reflect on the question of how, why, and how do we transcend, what do we do with it? Because in the final analysis, this is the question. What do we do about it?
Thina.